The rain fell in sheets, relentless and unforgiving, soaking everything it touched. The small town of Willow Creek seemed to shrink under the weight of the storm. Streets were deserted, shops were closed early, and even the stray dogs had found shelter beneath abandoned cars or inside empty sheds. But Marcus Kane, a wiry man in his late 20s with grease-streaked hands and a heart full of quiet determination, wasn't ready to call it a night just yet. Marcus owned a tiny garage tucked away at the edge of town, a place where old engines groaned back to life and battered vehicles got one last chance to prove their worth. He didn't have much, but he took pride in what he did. His tools were worn, his workspace cluttered, and his clothes perpetually stained with oil, but none of that mattered to him. To Marcus, fixing things was more than a job. It was a way to hold on to hope when life felt like it was falling apart around him. Tonight, however, there wasn't much work left to do. Most of his clients had canceled due to the weather, and the only car still in the shop belonged to Mrs. Peterson, whose ancient sedan needed new brake pads. It would wait until morning. As Marcus wiped down his tools and locked up the garage, the sound of thunder echoed through the air, followed by a sharp crack of lightning that lit up the sky. He paused for a moment, staring out into the darkness beyond the flickering street lamp, outside, and then he heard it. A faint cry, barely audible over the howling wind and pelting rain. At first, Marcus thought it might be his imagination playing tricks on him. Maybe it was just the creak of a loose shutter, or the rustle of leaves, being whipped about by the storm, but the sound came again, clearer this time, cutting through the chaos like a knife. It was unmistakable. Someone was crying for help. Without hesitation, Marcus grabbed his flashlight and stepped out into the deluge. The cold rain hit him like needles, instantly soaking through his thin jacket. He squinted against the downpour, scanning the shadows along the road. The sound seemed to come from somewhere near the alley beside the hardware store across the street. Pulling his hood tighter around his face, Marcus jogged toward the noise, his boots splashing through puddles as he went. When he reached the alley, the beam of his flashlight revealed a scene that made his stomach drop. There, huddled against the damp brick wall, was a young woman. She looked no older than her mid-20s, though it was hard to tell through the mess of wet hair plastered to her pale face. Her clothes, clearly expensive despite being torn and muddy, clung to her shivering frame. What caught Marcus's attention most, though, were the thick metal chains wrapped tightly around her wrists. They gleamed dully in the light, heavy and cruel, leaving angry red marks on her skin. "Hey," Marcus called out, rushing forward. "Are you okay? Who did this to you?" The woman flinched at the sound of his voice, pulling herself further into the corner as if bracing for another attack. Her wide eyes darted around wildly, searching for some unseen threat before finally settling on Marcus. For a moment she said nothing, her chest rising and falling rapidly with each labored breath. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she spoke. You shouldn't be here," she stammered, her words trembling almost as much as her body. "They'll find me. They'll hurt you too." Marcus frowned, crouching down to get a better look at her. Up close, he could see the fear etched into every line of her face, but there was something else there too. A fierce glimmer of resilience, like she hadn't given up completely. Whoever they were, they hadn't broken her yet. "Who are they?" Marcus asked gently, keeping his tone calm and steady. "And why are you chained up like this?" She hesitated, biting her lip as if debating whether to trust him. Finally, she shook her head. "I can't tell you. It's not safe. Just... please don't ask questions. Can you just... help me?" Her plea struck a chord deep within Marcus. He didn't know who she was or what kind of trouble she was in, but he couldn't turn away. Not now. Not when she was sitting right in front of him, soaked and terrified and clearly in desperate need of help. Without another word, Marcus stood up and hurried back to his truck parked near the garage. Rummaging through the toolbox in the back, he grabbed a pair of bolt cutters and returned to her side. "This is going to take a minute," he said, positioning the tool around the chain. "Try to stay still." As he worked, the woman watched him silently, her expression unreadable. When the first link snapped free, She let out a soft gasp, flexing her raw wrists as if testing whether they were really unbound. Marcus moved quickly to remove the rest of the chains, tossing them aside with a grimace. He couldn't imagine how long she'd been wearing them, or who could possibly think it was acceptable to treat another human being this way. Once she was free, Marcus shrugged off his jacket and draped it over her shoulders. "Come on," he said, helping her to her feet. "You can't stay out here, let's get you somewhere dry." She didn't argue, allowing him to guide her toward his truck. As they walked, Marcus noticed the way she kept glancing over her shoulder, as if expecting someone, or something, to leap out of the shadows at any moment. Whatever had happened to her, it was clear she wasn't out of danger yet. And while Marcus wasn't sure exactly what he'd gotten himself into, one thing was certain. Tonight was going to change both of their lives forever. Little did he know, the woman he'd just rescued wasn't just any ordinary victim. Beneath her tattered designer clothes and haunted eyes lay secrets that would shake even the strongest foundations. And Marcus was about to become entangled in a world far bigger than anything he'd ever imagined. The drive back to Marcus's apartment was quiet, save for the rhythmic patter of rain against the truck's roof and the occasional rumble of distant thunder. The woman sat hunched in the passenger seat, clutching Marcus's oversized jacket tightly around her shoulders. Her eyes were fixed on the blurred world outside the window, but it was clear she wasn't really seeing anything. She seemed lost in thought, her mind replaying whatever horrors had led her to that alley. Marcus glanced at her from time to time, his brow furrowed with concern. He wanted to ask more questions, needed to know who she was, why she'd been chained up and who they were, but he could tell she wasn't ready to talk yet. Instead, he focused on getting her somewhere safe and warm. His apartment wasn't much, a cramped space above the garage with peeling wallpaper and a sagging couch, but it was dry, and it was private. When they arrived, Marcus parked the truck beneath the overhang by the garage entrance and hurried around to open her door. She stepped out cautiously, her movements stiff and uncertain as if every step required immense effort. Marcus guided her up the narrow staircase to his apartment, flipping on the lights as they entered. The room was cluttered but clean, with tools scattered across a workbench by the window and a small TV perched precariously on a wooden stand. "Here," Marcus said, gesturing toward the couch. "Sit down. I'll grab you something dry to wear." She nodded mutely, lowering herself onto the edge of the couch as if afraid to fully relax. Marcus disappeared into his tiny bedroom, rummaging through drawers until he found an old hoodie and a pair of sweatpants. They weren't fancy, but they would do. He returned a moment later, handing the clothes to her along with a towel. "There's a bathroom just down the hall if you want to change," he said gently. "Take your time." She looked up at him then, her eyes meeting his for the first time since they'd left the alley. There was gratitude there, but also something else, a flicker of vulnerability that made Marcus's chest tighten. For all her expensive clothes and polished appearance, this woman was clearly broken, carrying burdens far heavier than anyone should have to bear. After a few moments, she stood and shuffled toward the bathroom, closing the door softly behind her. Marcus listened as the sound of running water filled the silence. He busied himself tidying up the living area, straightening the throw pillows and clearing away empty coffee mugs. When she emerged a short while later, wrapped in his two big clothes, she looked slightly less fragile, though her eyes still carried the weight of whatever nightmare she'd endured. "Thank you," she murmured, sinking back onto the couch. Her voice was softer now, edged with exhaustion. "You don't have to thank me," Marcus replied, sitting down in the armchair across from her. "But I do need to know. Are you okay? Do you want to tell me what happened?" She hesitated, pulling the sleeves of the hoodie over her hands and tucking her knees to her chest. For a long moment she stared at the floor, her fingers twisting nervously at the hem of the fabric. Then finally she spoke. "My name is Evelyn," she began, her voice barely audible. "And I can't explain everything right now, but I'm in trouble, big trouble, and if certain people find me—" Her voice trailed off and she shuddered visibly. Marcus leaned forward, his expression earnest. "Evelyn, whoever these people are, they won't find you here. I promise. You're safe with me. Evelyn managed a weak smile, though it didn't reach her eyes. You don't understand. These aren't ordinary people. They're powerful, dangerous. If they knew I was here, they wouldn't hesitate to hurt you or anyone else to get to me. Her words sent a chill down Marcus's spine, but he forced himself to remain calm. Then we'll figure it out together, one step at a time. Right now, you need rest. We can talk more in the morning. Evelyn nodded reluctantly, though Marcus could tell she wasn't convinced. Still, she didn't argue when he fetched a blanket from the closet and draped it over her shoulders. He offered her the couch, insisting she take it while he slept on the floor nearby. Despite her protests, she eventually relented, curling up under the blanket as Marcus settled into an uncomfortable position on the rug. As the hours passed, Marcus lay awake, listening to the steady rhythm of Evelyn's breathing as she drifted off to sleep. The storm outside had begun to subside, leaving only the occasional drip of water from the eaves. But inside, Marcus's mind was racing. Who was Evelyn? Really? What kind of trouble had she stumbled into? And why did she seem so terrified of being found? Despite the unanswered questions swirling in his head, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that he'd done the right thing by helping her. There was something about her, beneath the fear and the secrets, that resonated with him. Maybe it was the way she carried herself, even in her most vulnerable state, with a quiet dignity that suggested she was used to handling difficult situations. Or maybe it was the brief glimpses of strength he'd seen in her eyes, flashes of determination that hinted at a resilience far greater than anyone might expect. Whatever it was, Marcus knew one thing for certain. He couldn't turn his back on her now, not after seeing the look of pure terror in her eyes when he'd found her in that alley. Even if it meant putting himself in danger, he would protect her, for as long as it took. As dawn crept over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Marcus finally drifted off to sleep. But his peace was short-lived. Just as the first rays of sunlight filtered through the cracks in the blinds, a loud knock echoed through the apartment, jolting both him and Evelyn awake. Evelyn bolted upright, her eyes wide with panic. "They're here," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Oh no, they found me." Marcus sprang to his feet, his heart pounding. "Stay here," he instructed firmly, grabbing a baseball bat from beside the door. "I'll handle this." He approached the door cautiously, peering through the peephole. To his relief, it wasn't armed men or mysterious assailants waiting outside. It was Mrs. Peterson, the elderly owner of the sedan he'd been working on. She held an umbrella in one hand and a basket of freshly baked muffins in the other, looking as harmless as ever. "Marcus," she called cheerfully when he opened the door. "I brought you these to say thank you for fixing my car. I hope I'm not interrupting anything." For a split second, Marcus considered turning her away, knowing how suspicious it might look to have a strange woman hiding in his apartment. But then he remembered Evelyn's warning. Whoever was after her wouldn't hesitate to harm innocent bystanders. The last thing he needed was to draw attention to himself, or to put Mrs. Peterson in danger. "Thanks, Mrs. Peterson," Marcus said quickly, forcing a smile. "That's really kind of you. I'll catch up with you later, okay? I'm tied up at the moment." Mrs. Peterson raised an eyebrow but didn't press further. "All right, dear, don't forget to eat those before they go stale." With that, she turned and shuffled back toward the stairs, humming softly to herself. Once she was gone, Marcus closed the door and locked it securely, exhaling a shaky breath. He turned to find Evelyn standing behind him, her face pale but composed. "That was close," she said quietly. "Too close. We can't stay here, Marcus. It's only a matter of time before they track me down." Marcus frowned, setting the bat aside. "Where do you expect us to go? You're exhausted, and we don't even know who we're running from." Evelyn shook her head, her jaw tightening with resolve. "I'll explain everything soon, but for now, trust me, we need to leave. Now." Though every instinct told him to argue, Marcus could see the urgency in her eyes. Reluctantly, he nodded. "Fine, but we do this my way. No more secrets, deal?" Evelyn hesitated, then extended her hand. Deal. As they gathered their things and prepared to flee, neither of them realized just how far-reaching the consequences of their actions would be. What started as a simple act of kindness in the middle of a stormy night was about to spiral into something neither of them could have anticipated. And as they stepped out into the gray light of dawn, leaving the safety of Marcus's apartment behind, they both knew there was no turning back. The morning air was chilly, and the world outside still carried the dampness of the previous night's storm. Marcus and Evelyn moved quickly, their footsteps echoing softly on the wet pavement as they made their way to his truck. The streets of Willow Creek were quiet, save for the occasional car passing by or a dog barking in the distance. To anyone watching, they might have looked like two ordinary people heading out for an early errand. But beneath the surface, tension simmered. Evelyn clutched the blanket Marcus had given her tightly around her shoulders, even though she was now wearing his dry clothes. Her eyes darted nervously from side to side, scanning every shadow, every parked car, every passerby. She seemed hyper-aware of her surroundings, as if expecting danger to leap out at any moment. Marcus noticed this, but didn't say anything. Instead, he focused on keeping his voice calm and steady whenever he spoke. "So where are we going?" Marcus asked as they reached the truck. He opened the passenger door for Evelyn, helping her inside before climbing into the driver's seat. "I don't know yet," Evelyn admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Somewhere far from here. Somewhere they won't think to look." Marcus frowned, gripping the steering wheel tightly. "You keep saying, they. Who exactly are we talking about? And why are they after you?" Evelyn hesitated, her fingers twisting anxiously in her lap. For a moment, it seemed like she might refuse to answer. Then, with a deep sigh, she began to speak. "My family owns a company, a very big company. Hartley Industries. You've probably heard of it." Marcus froze, his hands tightening reflexively on the wheel. Of course he'd heard of Hartley Industries. It was one of the largest corporations in the country, involved in everything from technology to real estate to pharmaceuticals. Their name was everywhere. But what did that have to do with Evelyn? "You're part of the Hartleys?" Marcus asked, his voice tinged with disbelief. He glanced at her, taking in her disheveled appearance and the haunted look in her eyes. It was hard to reconcile the woman sitting next to him with the image of a billionaire heiress. "Yes," Evelyn said quietly. "I'm Evelyn Hartley. My father is Richard Hartley, the CEO. But being part of my family isn't as glamorous as it sounds. Our wealth comes at a cost, a lot of costs. People envy us, resent us, and some will do anything to take what's ours." Marcus stared at her, trying to process what she was saying. "So someone's trying to hurt your family? Is that why you're running?" "It's not just my family," Evelyn replied, her voice trembling slightly. "It's me, specifically me. There's a faction within the company, people who want control. They've been manipulating deals, laundering money, doing things my father would never approve of if he knew. When I found out, I tried to stop them. I thought I could expose them, make them pay for what they've done. But instead," her voice broke and she took a shaky breath. "Instead, they decided I was too much of a threat. They framed me for embezzlement, spread lies about me, and then they came after me. That's why I was chained up last night. They wanted to make sure I couldn't fight back." Marcus listened in stunned silence, his mind racing. This wasn't just some random act of violence or kidnapping. It was a calculated move, part of a much larger, darker game. And somehow he had stumbled right into the middle of it. "What about the police?" Marcus asked finally. "Why not go to them? Surely they can help." Evelyn shook her head bitterly. "They're in on it too. At least some of them are. These people have connections everywhere, in law enforcement, in government, in the media. If I go to the authorities, they'll arrest me before I can even finish explaining. Or worse, they'll kill me and call it an accident." The weight of her words settled heavily between them. Marcus felt a surge of anger, not at Evelyn, but at the injustice of it all. How could someone so powerful and wealthy be so utterly powerless against the forces arrayed against her? And how could he, A simple mechanic from a small town possibly hoped to protect her. "We'll figure something out," Marcus said firmly, more to reassure himself than her. "We'll find a way to clear your name. But first, we need to get you somewhere safe." Evelyn nodded, though doubt lingered in her eyes. "Thank you, Marcus, for everything. I know I don't deserve your help, but—" "Stop," Marcus interrupted gently. "You don't owe me anything. Helping people is what I do. Besides," he gave her a small, crooked smile, "you've got guts. Not many people would stand up to their own family like that. I respect that." Evelyn managed a faint smile in return, though it didn't reach her eyes. "Let's just hope my guts are enough to get us through this." With that, Marcus turned the key in the ignition, and the truck roared to life. He drove carefully, sticking to back roads and avoiding main highways where they might attract attention. Along the way, he kept glancing at Evelyn, studying her profile in the dim light of the dashboard. Despite everything she'd been through, there was a quiet strength about her, a determination to survive, no matter the odds. As the miles rolled by, Evelyn began to open up a little more, sharing fragments of her life before the chaos. She talked about growing up in a sprawling mansion filled with servants and luxury, yet feeling isolated and suffocated by the expectations placed upon her. She spoke of her strained relationship with her father, a man who loved her but often prioritized the company over his own family, and she confessed her dream of someday leaving it all behind, starting fresh somewhere far away from the cutthroat world of corporate politics. Listening to her, Marcus couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy. Evelyn's life might have looked perfect from the outside, but inside it was crumbling under the weight of secrets and betrayals. In a strange way, he realized they weren't so different. Both of them were outsiders in their own worlds, struggling to find meaning and purpose amidst circumstances beyond their control. By mid-afternoon, they arrived at a secluded cabin nestled deep in the woods. It belonged to a friend of Marcus's, an old hunting buddy who rarely used it anymore. The place was rustic but sturdy, with thick wooden walls and a stone fireplace that promised warmth on cold nights. Best of all, it was remote, hidden from prying eyes by dense trees and winding dirt paths. "This should work," Marcus said as they pulled up to the cabin. "No one knows about this place except me and my buddy. We'll lay low here for a while until we come up with a plan." Evelyn nodded gratefully, stepping out of the truck and stretching her legs. The forest surrounding them was eerily silent, the only sounds the rustling of leaves in the breeze and the distant chirping of birds. It was peaceful, but also unnerving, as if the stillness itself was hiding something. Inside, the cabin was cozy, with a small kitchen, a living area furnished, with mismatched chairs and a threadbare rug, and a loft bedroom accessible by a ladder. Marcus set about lighting a fire in the hearth while Evelyn explored the space, trailing her fingers along the dusty shelves and peering out the windows. "It's not much," Marcus said apologetically, "but it's safe." "It's perfect," Evelyn replied, her voice soft but sincere. "Thank you." For the first time since meeting her, Marcus saw a flicker of genuine gratitude in her expression. It was a small victory, but it meant something. Maybe, just maybe, they could get through this together. But as night fell and the fire crackled softly in the background, neither of them could shake the feeling that their respite wouldn't last long. Somewhere out there, shadows were closing in, and sooner or later, they would catch up. The days in the cabin passed slowly, each one blending into the next like the colors of a fading sunset. The forest outside was quiet, almost too quiet, as if nature itself was holding its breath. Inside, Marcus and Evelyn settled into a fragile routine. They cooked simple meals together using canned goods Marcus had brought along, tended to the fire to keep the chill at bay, and talked, sometimes about nothing in particular, other times about everything that mattered. Evelyn began to open up more, sharing pieces of her life that she'd kept hidden for years. She told Marcus about the pressure of living under the Hartley name, the constant scrutiny from the media, and the loneliness that came with being part of a family where trust was as rare as honesty. In return, Marcus shared stories of his own struggles, growing up poor, losing his parents at a young age and working tirelessly to keep his garage afloat despite the odds stacked against him. Through these conversations, a bond formed between them, a tentative friendship built on mutual understanding and respect. Evelyn admired Marcus's resilience, his ability to find joy in the little things despite the hardships he'd faced. And Marcus, in turn, was drawn to Evelyn's strength, the way she refused to let fear consume her even when the world seemed determined to crush her. But beneath the surface of their newfound camaraderie lay an unspoken tension. Both knew they couldn't stay hidden forever. Sooner or later, the people hunting Evelyn would find them. Or worse, they'd hurt someone else to draw her out. Every creak of the cabin's wooden floorboards, every rustle of leaves outside, sent a jolt of anxiety through Evelyn. Marcus did his best to reassure her, but even he couldn't ignore the gnawing sense of unease that settled over them like a fog. On the fourth night, that fog turned into a storm. It started with a sound, a faint hum that grew louder and more insistent until it became unmistakable. The whirring of helicopter blades, slicing through the air above the trees. Marcus and Evelyn exchanged a panicked glance before rushing to the window. Through the gaps in the dense canopy, they could see the faint glow of searchlights sweeping across the forest floor. "They're here," Evelyn whispered, her voice trembling. "I don't know how they found us, but they're here." Marcus clenched his fists, his mind racing. "We need to move. Now." Grabbing what little supplies they had, they slipped out the back door and into the darkness of the woods. The ground was uneven, littered with roots and rocks that threatened to trip them at every step. Behind them, the sound of the helicopter grew closer, its spotlight cutting through the trees like a blade. Evelyn stumbled once, her ankle twisting painfully, but Marcus caught her before she fell, helping her regain her footing. "We can't outrun them," Evelyn panted, tears streaming down her face. "They'll catch us no matter what we do." "Not if I can help it," Marcus replied firmly. "Just keep moving." As they pushed deeper into the forest, the noise of the helicopter faded slightly, replaced by the sound of voices shouting in the distance. Men armed with flashlights and weapons fanned out, closing in on their location. Marcus realized they needed to act fast and smart. Spotting a narrow ravine ahead, partially concealed by thick bushes, Marcus led Evelyn toward it. "Get down," he instructed, pulling her into the shallow ditch. They huddled there, barely, breathing as the men passed overhead, their boots crunching loudly on the forest floor. "They must be close," one of the men muttered. "Spread out and keep looking." Evelyn clutched Marcus's arm, her nails digging into his skin. He placed a reassuring hand over hers, silently urging her to stay calm. When the voices faded again, Marcus motioned for her to follow him further, down the ravine. It was slippery and treacherous, but it offered some cover from prying eyes. After what felt like hours, they reached a clearing where the forest opened up to reveal a narrow stream. Moonlight shimmered on the water, casting an ethereal glow over the scene. Marcus knelt by the edge, cupping his hands to scoop up some water and splash it onto his face. His heart was pounding, his body aching from the relentless pace, but he forced himself to focus. "We can't stay here," Evelyn said softly, her voice raw with exhaustion. "They'll find us eventually." "I know," Marcus replied, standing up. "But we're not giving up yet." Just then a twig snapped behind them. Both froze, turning slowly to see three figures emerging from the shadows. Dressed in black tactical gear, their faces obscured by masks, they advanced steadily, weapons raised. One of them stepped forward, lowering his gun just enough to address them. "Evelyn Hart-Ching Lai." The figure in black took another step forward, his voice cold and commanding. "Evelyn Hartley, come with us quietly and no one gets hurt." Evelyn froze, her breath catching in her throat. She glanced at Marcus, her eyes wide with panic, silently, pleading for guidance. Marcus stood protectively in front of her, his jaw clenched tightly. He wasn't armed, not really, but he had something far more powerful: sheer determination. "Stay back," Marcus growled, his tone leaving no room for negotiation. "You're not taking her anywhere." The man smirked beneath his mask, clearly amused by Marcus's bravado. Kid, you don't want to play hero here. This doesn't concern you. Step aside. It concerns me now, Marcus shot back, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. If you want her, you'll have to go through me. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. The three men exchanged glances, their expressions unreadable behind their masks. Then, without warning, they moved as one, closing the distance between them. Marcus acted on instinct, lunging forward to tackle the nearest assailant. They crashed to the ground, grappling for control of the weapon. Evelyn screamed, backing away as the other two men advanced toward her. "Run!" Marcus shouted, struggling to pin his opponent down. "Get out of here," but Evelyn didn't run. Instead, she grabbed a fallen branch from the ground and swung it with all her might, striking one of the men squarely in the head. He staggered backward, momentarily stunned, giving her enough time to dart past him and grab hold of Marcus's arm. "We're not leaving you," she cried, pulling him to his feet just as the third man lunged at them. Together, they stumbled into the stream, the icy water shocking their senses but propelling them forward. Behind them, shouts erupted, as their pursuers regrouped, splashing after them. "This way!" Marcus yelled, leading Evelyn along the edge of the stream until they reached a cluster of boulders. They scrambled up the rocky slope, slipping and sliding, but refusing to stop. When they finally reached the top, they found themselves overlooking a narrow dirt road winding through the forest. A single car was parked nearby, its engine idling. Without hesitation, Marcus dragged Evelyn toward the vehicle, yanking open the driver's side door. To their relief and surprise, the keys were still in the ignition. Marcus slid behind the wheel while Evelyn climbed into the passenger seat, slamming the door shut just as their attackers emerged from the trees below. "Hold on," Marcus shouted, revving the engine and peeling out onto the road. Tires screeched against the loose gravel, sending rocks flying as they sped away. In the rearview mirror, they could see the men sprinting back toward the helicopter, which hovered ominously above the treetops. "They're not going to give up," Evelyn said, breathlessly, clutching the dashboard as the car jolted over bumps in the road. "They'll follow us. Then we'll make sure they never catch us," Marcus replied grimly, his knuckles white as he gripped the steering wheel. "We need a plan." Hours later, they arrived at a small diner nestled in the outskirts of a neighboring town. It was late, and the place was nearly empty, save for a few truckers nursing cups of coffee at the counter. Marcus parked the stolen car several blocks away, ensuring it wouldn't draw attention, before escorting Evelyn inside. They sat in a booth near the window, their wet clothes dripping onto the tiled floor. "I need to call someone," Evelyn said suddenly, her voice trembling but resolute. "Someone who can help." Marcus frowned. "Who?" "You said yourself that most people are either involved or too scared to act." "There's one person," Evelyn admitted hesitantly. "My uncle. He's complicated, but he's always been loyal to my father. If anyone can expose what's happening within the company, it's him." Reaching into her pocket, Evelyn pulled out a phone Marcus had given her earlier, a burner device purchased during their brief stop at a gas station. Her fingers trembled as she dialed the number, but when the line connected, her voice steadied. "Uncle Charles," she began, cutting straight to the point. "I need your help. I know about the corruption in the company, about the embezzlement, the bribes, everything. I have proof. But I can't do this alone. They're coming for me." There was a long pause on the other end of the line, followed by a deep sigh. "Evelyn, where are you?" her uncle asked, his tone cautious but concerned. She hesitated, glancing at Marcus. "Somewhere safe for now. Please, Uncle Charles, you're my only hope." After a brief exchange, Evelyn hung up, visibly relieved. "He's sending people to meet us, trusted allies. He says he'll handle things from his end. He'll gather evidence, contact the authorities, everything. But we need to stay hidden until then." Marcus nodded, though worry lingered in his eyes. "And if they find us before your uncle does?" "They won't," Evelyn said firmly, though her voice lacked conviction. "We'll keep moving. We'll survive." True to his word, Uncle Charles's team arrived the next morning. a group of discreet but heavily armed bodyguards who whisked Evelyn away to an undisclosed location. Before leaving, she turned to Marcus, her expression torn between gratitude and guilt. "I owe you everything," she said softly, tears welling in her eyes. "You saved my life, Marcus. I'll never forget that." "You don't owe me anything," Marcus replied, managing a small smile despite the heaviness in his chest. "Just promise me you'll be okay." "I will," Evelyn promised, her voice breaking slightly. "And when this is over, I'll come back for you." As the car carrying Evelyn disappeared down the road, Marcus felt a strange mix of emotions: relief that she was safe, pride in what they'd accomplished together, and a pang of emptiness knowing their journey had come to an end. He returned to Willow Creek alone, resuming his quiet life as a mechanic. Yet deep down, he couldn't shake the feeling that his story with Evelyn wasn't truly finished. Weeks passed, and just as Marcus began to settle back into routine, a sleek black car pulled up outside his garage. Out stepped Evelyn, dressed in a tailored suit that screamed wealth and power, but her eyes, those same haunted yet hopeful eyes, remained unchanged. "I kept my promise," she said with a smile, walking toward him. "Now it's your turn. Come with me, Marcus. Let me show you the world beyond Willow Creek. Together we can build something extraordinary." Marcus hesitated for only a moment before nodding. Because sometimes, amidst chaos and danger, fate brings two people together. Not just to survive, but to thrive. And Marcus knew without a doubt that this was only the beginning of their adventure. Evelyn's return to Willow Creek wasn't just a surprise, it was a declaration. She didn't come alone. The sleek black car that pulled up outside Marcus's garage was accompanied by another vehicle filled with assistants and security personnel. The sight of it drew curious stares from passers-by, who whispered among themselves about the mysterious woman in the expensive suit and the chaos she seemed to bring with her. Marcus wiped his grease-stained hands on a rag as he stepped out of the garage, squinting against the sunlight reflecting off the polished cars. When he saw Evelyn standing there, his heart skipped a beat. For a moment, all he could do was stare, taking in the transformation before him. Gone was the frightened woman in oversized sweatpants and a hoodie. In her place stood someone entirely different, confident, poised, and radiating authority. Yet beneath the polished exterior, Marcus could still see traces of the vulnerable girl he'd helped escape the shadows of her past. "You came back," Marcus said finally, breaking the silence. His voice carried a mix of disbelief and something else, something softer, almost tender. "I told you I would," Evelyn replied, her lips curling into a small smile. "I don't break promises." For a moment, they simply looked at each other, the weight of everything unsaid hanging heavy in the air. Then Evelyn gestured toward the second car where her team waited patiently. "We don't have much time. There's so much I need to explain and so much I want to show you. But first," she paused, her expression softening further. "First, I owe you an apology." Marcus raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "An apology? For what?" "For dragging you into my mess," Evelyn admitted, her voice tinged with guilt. "But also gratitude. You risked everything for me. You put your life on the line without even knowing who I was or what you were getting into. And because of that, I was able to take down the people who were destroying my family's company. My Uncle Charles and I exposed the corruption, arrested the key players, and cleaned house. It wasn't easy, but we did it, all thanks to you." Marcus shook his head, dismissing the praise. "You're the one who had the guts to stand up to them. I just helped where I could." "No," Evelyn insisted firmly. "You did more than help. You gave me hope when I didn't think I had any left. You showed me that kindness still exists, even in the darkest places. That's why I'm here now, to repay that kindness, to give you a chance at the life you deserve." Before Marcus could respond, Evelyn motioned for one of her assistants to approach. The man carried a folder which he handed to Evelyn before stepping back discreetly. Opening it, Evelyn revealed a stack of documents, blueprints, and financial projections. "This," she said, spreading the papers across the hood of the nearest car, "is your future if you want it. With Hartley Industries' resources, I can help you expand your garage into something bigger, something world-class." a state-of-the-art facility where you can not only repair cars but innovate, build custom designs, develop sustainable technologies, anything you can dream of. You'll have access to top engineers, cutting-edge tools, and funding beyond what you ever imagined. Marcus stared at the documents, his mind reeling. He'd spent years scraping by, barely keeping his business afloat, and now Evelyn was offering him the opportunity of a lifetime. But it wasn't just the scale of the offer that overwhelmed him. It was the trust behind it. This wasn't charity. It was partnership. Evelyn believed in him, in his skills and his vision, enough to invest in his dreams. I don't know what to say, Marcus stammered, running a hand through his hair. This is incredible. But are you sure? After everything that happened, wouldn't it be easier to leave it all behind? Start fresh somewhere new? Evelyn shook her head, her gaze unwavering. Leaving Willow Creek isn't an option. Not anymore. This town saved me in ways I never expected. And besides, she hesitated, her cheeks flushing slightly as she glanced away. I'm not ready to let go of the person I became here, or the people who helped me become her. Her words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Marcus felt a warmth spread through his chest, a feeling he hadn't experienced in years, a sense of belonging, of purpose. Slowly, he nodded. All right, he said, his voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside him. Let's do it. Together. Evelyn's face lit up with a radiant smile, and for the first time since meeting her, Marcus saw the weight of fear and uncertainty lift completely from her shoulders. She extended her hand and he took it, sealing their agreement with a firm handshake. Over the next few months, Willow Creek underwent a transformation unlike anything its residents had ever seen. Marcus's modest garage expanded into a sprawling complex equipped with the latest technology and staffed by some of the brightest minds in engineering. News of the project spread quickly, drawing attention from across the country. Journalists wrote glowing articles about the unlikely collaboration between a billionaire heiress and a small-town mechanic, turning Marcus and Evelyn into local heroes. But the changes weren't limited to the garage. Evelyn poured resources into revitalizing the town itself, renovating schools, building parks, and creating job opportunities for its people. Her efforts earned her both admiration and skepticism. Some hailed her as a savior, while others questioned her motives, but Evelyn didn't care. For the first time in her life, she felt like she was making a real difference. As for Marcus, he thrived in his new role. With Evelyn's support, he pushed the boundaries of innovation, designing eco-friendly vehicles and pioneering advancements in renewable energy. His work earned accolades, but more importantly, it brought pride to a community that had long been overlooked. Through it all, Marcus and Evelyn grew closer, their bond deepening with each passing day. What had started as a chance encounter during a stormy night blossomed into something neither of them had anticipated: love. It wasn't flashy or dramatic. It was quiet, steady, and built on mutual respect and trust. They learned from each other, challenged each other, and supported each other in ways neither had thought possible. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting golden light over the newly renovated town square, Evelyn and Marcus stood side by side, watching children play and families gather for a community picnic. The sound of laughter filled the air, mingling with the scent of freshly baked pies and grilled food. "You've done so much for this place," Marcus said softly, glancing at Evelyn. "And for me." Evelyn smiled, leaning her head against his shoulder. "We've done it together. None of this would have been possible without you." Marcus chuckled, shaking his head. "Still can't believe how far we've come, from that rainy night in the alley to all this. It's funny how life works sometimes," Evelyn mused, her voice wistful. "A single act of kindness can change everything." They stood there in comfortable silence, soaking in the beauty of the moment. Behind them, the lights of the garage flickered on, illuminating the sign that now read, "Kane Innovations." It was a testament to how far Marcus had come, and a reminder of the journey that lay ahead. In the end, Their story wasn't just about survival or success. It was about connection, about finding light in the darkness and building bridges where none existed before. And as they walked hand in hand toward their shared future, Marcus and Evelyn knew one thing for certain. No matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together.